Continuing our DNC coverage after the dance party roll call at the DNC last night, Chicago native former President Barack Obama took to the stage almost exactly 20 years from his 2004 speech addressing a very different nation, but still with the message of hope and a belief that America's best days are still ahead. But this message stands in stark contrast to former President Trump's wanting to return to a time he believes America was great. And whichever message carries the day may very well determine the next president of the United States. And here to discuss this and more is Isaac Hale, assistant professor of politics at Occidental College. Good morning, Professor. Good to see you. How are you?
Good morning. It's good to be here.
All right, let's dive into it. The DNC giving Kamala Harris all kinds of momentum, but polls still show that this race is still extremely close, even though the messaging from these campaigns, as I said up top there, they couldn't be any more different. Talk to us about these contrasting messages, and if we look to history as a guide, which one historically will end up carrying the day?
Yeah, so I think it's important to keep in mind that the DNC and RNC are essentially multi-day ads for their party, but they don't reflect the mood of the country. Forecasts currently show that candidates have about equal chances of winning, even though Harris leads by about 3 points in national polls. Recall that Hillary Clinton won the national popular vote by about 2 points in 2016, but lost in the Electoral College, which currently has a Republican lean. Interestingly, Harris seems to be running as a change candidate, talking about not going back, despite being the incumbent vice president. And I think the reasons for this are pretty clear. Americans continue to disapprove of Joe Biden by a 17-point margin, which is comparable to Jimmy Carter's approval on Election Day in 1980. So I think there's a change message coming from both sides, and that'll be interesting to watch going forward.
It will. We'll continue to watch that as well. You know what? Former President Obama even said it. You know, he said how hard it was going to have to be going after his wife last night with her speech. I almost felt bad for him having to follow her up last night, but we heard a very different tone from her, going after former President Donald Trump directly and seeming to throw her famous line, "When they go low, we got high," kind of threw it out to the side, said, you know, I'm going after him. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I think it was a characteristically strong speech from former First Lady Michelle Obama. Keep in mind that the Obamas and Kamala Harris are longtime allies. Harris was an early backer of Barack Obama in the 2008 primary at a time when Hillary Clinton was presumed to be the heavy favorite in that race. And I think the speech was a powerful message from the former First Lady. Remember, Michelle Obama is one of the most popular figures in U.S. politics, while Harris is about -2 favorable ratings, Trump about -10. Michelle Obama has about +30 favorable. So she's a powerful communicator and one of the strongest assets that Democrats can put forward at the DNC.
Yeah, of course, folks were chanting for her, and then, of course, being in her home state as well, home city, Chicago. We also heard from the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, who talked about Kamala as a loving wife, a mamala to his children, and about their very first phone call. Take a listen.
I got Kamala's voicemail, and I just started rambling. Hey, it's Doug. I'm on my way to an early meeting. Again, it's Doug.
Definitely a funny anecdote, to be sure. How effectively have Democrats told the story of Kamala Harris in these first 2 days of the convention? Because some would say, hey, you know, unlike other folks who had a great long lead up with her just getting this, you know, nomination essentially 3-4 weeks ago, we haven't really heard her story.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. While many candidates have a whole primary cycle, a whole pre-nomination cycle to tell their story to voters and get their biography out there, Harris, of course, because of the unusual way in which she's become the leader of the party, has had much less time to make that case. I think the other big question mark that remains is that I don't think voters yet have a very clear idea of what kind of president she would be. Given that a month ago Biden was the party's presumptive nominee, she doesn't have a full policy platform yet. The big question that remains is, will we be getting a candidate in the mold of a California progressive, someone maybe like her position as a senator from California, or the tough on crime DA and from her former life in San Francisco?
I want to switch gears just a little bit here. A major issue that divides Democrats in the war is the war in Gaza. And we expected massive protests outside the convention, which there have been these protests, but they seem to have been a little bit smaller than expected. What do you make of that?
Yeah, Democrats are divided on Gaza. Only 23% of Democrats in recent polling approve of Israel's military action in Gaza. but it also ranks in polling consistently near the bottom of voters' concerns, trailing issues like immigration, the economy, and income inequality. And Harris as a candidate has taken a more empathetic tone with protesters, but it's not clear, again, speaking to that lack of a fully developed policy platform, that there's much daylight between her and the Biden administration. I don't think we should expect protesters to disappear, especially with news today that a potential ceasefire deal may be collapsing. But certainly the change in the candidates have upended the dynamics within the Democratic Party on this issue as well.
All right, Isaac, I'm going to get you out here real quick on this one. Before I let you go, if last month really has taught us anything in politics in 2024, it is that it's just unpredictable. What are you paying close attention to as we get closer and closer to November 5th?
Well, I already mentioned President Joe Biden's approval rating. Will it rebound prior to the election? Also, swing state polling, Harris and Trump are essentially tied in 5 key states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. And Trump narrowly leads in 2, Georgia and Arizona. And I think the last thing I really want to watch is economic sentiment. Harris is currently tied with Trump in the polls in terms of who voters trust to handle the economy. But voters say by a 30-point margin, they're worse off today than when Biden became president. If Trump can associate that dissatisfaction with Vice President Harris, that's trouble for her campaign.
All right, he is Isaac Hale, Assistant Professor of Politics at Occidental College. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. You too.
All right, folks, coming up, a look at how decades-old plants are being preserved for future generations here in Southern California. Terrell Wagner has a story for you on that coming up. And here is a live look outside what we've been discussing all week. That is the United Center in Chicago at the DNC as it continues. And a little bit later on today, you're going to have some big names speaking as well. We'll tell you more about that. We'll have weather and traffic coming up. Stay with us. Your morning, Spectrum News 1.